fifth grade. Mrs. Hales here with day 2 of our macro or close-up pollinator illustrations. So I started with my background. So it makes probably more sense for you guys to start with your background. We're going to add color today. And our goal today is to see if we can get all of the background colors so that next class we can focus on coloring our insect. Supplies you're going to need today include your drawing from last class, colored pencils, and an eraser. If you didn't quite finish your drawing from last class, you'll need a pencil. So like I said, I'm going to start with the background, and I wanted the center of my the flower head, which is the little part in the middle of the flower. I wanted that part to be green because I wanted it to be more in the background, and then I'm going to color the round shapes with a highlight. So I made this green, and then I went back in the center of this green part and pushed down even harder and made the center of this part even darker green. I kept my pencil strokes going the same direction. It doesn't matter if you want to use lines as strokes or little tiny circles, whatever you decide to use, just be consistent and keep them going the same direction. I wanted the petals of my flowers to be white. I wanted it to be like just a straightforward daisy with a yellowish green center and white petals, but I can't leave them just solid white. I have to give them some kind of visual interest, some depth, some texture. So I'm gonna come into my petals in the center and make them a little bit darker with like some yellow and some green and some gray. I thought this was interesting. I learned that in the daisy, the flower head or the middle of the flower, each one of those tiny little dots or circles is actually its own mini flower. So I wanted to emphasize those a little bit, so I went around each one of them with a darker green color. That's what I'm doing right now. I wanted each one of these little, I'll call them mini flowers in the center, in the flower head, to look like they had a highlight and to look like they had depth. So I colored the outside edges of each one with a darker green, and then I got lighter and lighter as I got in towards the center. So the middle of each one is white, but I faded my color as I got in towards the center. Now, the thing you need to do with colored pencils is you need to overlap your colors. So what I did for this one is I started with my kind of the medium color, and I pushed down harder on the edges, and then I lightened up my pressure as I got in towards the center of each circle. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over top of that with a darker green and do the very edges with the darker green, and then a lighter green over top of that and in towards the middle. So the best way to blend colored pencils is not using your finger, but to vary your pressure and to overlap the colors and the shades. Could have even used like a medium or dark blue on the edges. That would have even enhanced the depth around the edges even more. So y'all, I just kept going. I just darkened it up wherever I could. If you need to lighten an area, you can erase colored pencil. Sometimes it's hard if you have a really dark color and you've pushed down really hard, it's hard to get all of that colored pencil and the pigment off of your paper, but you can erase colored pencil a little bit. So now I'm just darkening up my edges even more with my darkest green. So now I've got about 2 of them done, and you can see the center is the lightest part. They don't have to look exactly the same, each one. If you can get them to look very similar, then when your eye looks at your picture, it's gonna read them as all the same thing. So I knew I wanted to use the blue butterfly in my illustration, and so I could have used orange as the flower color because I know that orange is across from blue on the color wheel and it is blue's complement. So those colors would have really popped and looked great together, but I wanted to have a white daisy with a yellowish greenish center. So I opted for that instead. What I could have done was a blue butterfly, an orange petals, and then like a yellowish green or a yellow and white kind of theme center. So I could have done that. So be thoughtful about your color choices. If you're doing If your flower is yellow, you could do a purple butterfly or moth. If you wanted to, if you're doing a red ladybug, that would look really great on a green leaf. All right, boys and girls, it's going to take you a while to color your flowers or your leaves or your honeycomb or whatever your background of your illustration is behind your enlarged insects. So I'm going to give you as much time as possible to get started coloring these. And I'll see you next class. We're going to color our insects or our pollinators next class.